again. Welcome back to the Watchung Booksellers podcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marnie, and I'm here with Catherine.
Hi, Marnie.
And we're back to share another discussion about what we do for the love of books. Some of us read, some write, and some decide to switch careers and run a bookstore.
We launched the Watchung Booksellers podcast with a How It Started episode with Margot Sage-EL, the now owner emeritus of Watchung Booksellers. Her chat with Liz Egan was really a fascinating look back at the last 30 years of starting and running a bookstore in Montclair.
Now we're following up with a look at how it's going from Watchung Booksellers' new owner, Maddie Ciliotta-Young, talking with her friend, Contessa Gales.
It's been a whirlwind of activity during this transition. We've added new staff, more events, and a brand new children's bookstore, which is just about to celebrate its first birthday. So there's lots to talk about. But before we jump in, Marnie, what are you reading?
I'm actually rereading a book, Writing as a Way of Healing, How Telling Our Stories Transforms Our Lives. It's by the late, great Louise DeSalvo. She used to live here in Montclair, and she was a friend of the store. She was a professor at Hunter College's MFA program, and she was a Virginia Woolf Scholar, and it's an excellent book, and I recommend it to everybody. How about you, Catherine?
I just finished All Fours by Miranda July. I love Miranda July. I've kind of been following her since the 90s. Her films, her art. She's very, very funny, and her work is very poignant. And this book is so bawdy and intense and so funny and has her signature weird minutia. And it really hit home with me, and I think with a lot of women who are in a certain age of their life. It's kind of like nothing I've ever read before. If you're interested in these books or any of the books that our guests in all of our episodes discuss, check out our webpage at watchungbooksellers.com. Okay, let's introduce our guests.
Maddie Ciliotta-Young is the owner and operator of Watchung Booksellers in Montclair, New Jersey. Maddie grew up in Montclair and at the bookstore with her mom, Margot. After college, she was a teacher and principal for over a decade at a New York City public high school. As a school administrator, Maddie had a focus on equity for underserved schools and a passion for teaching literacy. She joined the Watchung Booksellers team in 2022, and when she's not in the store, she can be found enjoying Montclair's restaurants with her husband or on the soccer field cheering on her two children.
And with her today is Contessa Gales. Contessa is a nonfiction film director, writer, cinematographer, editor, and an Emmy-nominated producer. She tells stories about identity, sociopolitical movement, healing, Black liberation, and the radical imagination. Her forthcoming feature documentary visual album, Songs from the Whole, world premiered at the 2024 South by Southwest Film Festival, where it won the Audience Award Visions category. Her documentary short, Founder Girls, which was executive produced with Queen Latifah, premiered at the 2023 Tribeca Film Festival and broadcast on BET. Previously, she was a producer at CNN, where she created, directed, produced, shot, and edited award-winning original series and documentaries, including the feature documentary, The Feminist on Cell Block Y.
Enjoy the conversation, and we'll be back to fill you in on what's coming up in the bookstore. Thanks for inviting me to do this.
Thanks for coming.
I'm so excited to talk about you and the legacy of Watchung Booksellers. And
Thanks.
yeah, so your mom did this episode kicking off the podcast, how it started.
Yep.
And now we're here today sitting down to talk about how it's going.
Yep. 30-something years later, right?
Yeah.
She started in whatever, 90-something.
I listened to her episode, and the first question that she was asked by Liz Egan was to describe her childhood in relationship to books. And so I would love for you to do the same to start out.
Yeah. So my childhood with books I was always a strong reader. I loved reading. We always read as a family, but I was a pretty independent reader. And I was 8, maybe. Well, first my mom had the catalog, and that was
What's the catalog? Please explain.
The mail order catalog, Great Owl Books, black and white. I have to show you a picture. It was so good. And so that was because she couldn't find any books with black or brown kids. And she was like, well, then I got to do it. And so there were boxes of catalogs all over our house. And people would write, they would write a letter and be like, please send me your catalog. Totally analog. And she had little black and white pictures of all the books. And so people would just order books from the catalog. And that's how she started.
So wait, she was curating a catalog.
So she found all of these books with like various publishers, and then she would sell them to schools, individuals, like she would just send them out to people. I don't know, you would get a catalog in your mail.
Okay, so you had like stacks of these.
So that was like
house.
all over our house all the time. And she was always on the phone. And so it was like your mom works from home and it's like, shh, shh, like, you know, get like on the phone. Yeah, exactly. So I think I started to get a little bit bitter at that point. and then she opened the like brick and mortar store. And that, I think I was 8 when that happened. If that was like 1996 or whatever.
What was your experience going into that space as a kid?
So, I mean, like, I have fond memories of it, but I do know, like, that first year I did not read for a year, would not pick up books.
Out of protest or why?
Jealousy? I think I was jealous of the books. And they took up my mom's time. Like, she remembers me having nightmares of the store burning down.
Wow.
I don't, like, quite remember that, but I do remember feeling, like, angry at reading, at books, because it took my mom away. So it's like, you open a business. She was there all day. We had the school bus to drop me and my brother off there instead of home, because that's where we would have to hang out after school. So I was a little bit sour. Just a bit. But I was 8, and I think I got over it pretty quickly. Like, by the time I was done with elementary school, I was, like, back to doing my thing.
The protest had ended.
Yeah, so that protest ended. And then by the time I was in high school, I was supposed to read the canon. Our high school is very tracked, so it was in a lot of like the high level and the AP courses. Mm-hmm. And so I refused to read any of the books that were assigned to me. And I decided to just spend all day reading in class. And I was like, I dare you to like ask me to stop reading. But I never read what was assigned to me. And so I think I was a little tough to teach. And to parent. I don't think it was easy at all. Yeah, reading is an act of defiance. Or not reading is an act of defiance.
Either way, it's some kind of power.
Always protesting something.
Were you ever put to work in the bookstore for your mom?
A little bit. So, like, if we needed money, we could file or, like, sit at the register. I used to love, like, just ringing customers out. But I never officially worked there. When I was in high school, I worked at Dem Two Hands, which was, like, the most amazing women's clothing store. Marion Lake owned it. It's where, Paper Plane coffee? Mm-hmm. So her store was there, and I worked there in high school. And that was, like, wonderful. It was, like, surrounded by the most beautiful jewels and handmade silks. And it was, like, lovely. So I did something very different than books. And I worked there high school through college.
And did you ever see yourself working in the bookstore, let alone taking it over?
I think I thought
as an adult.
Yeah, not as 9. I think I thought I would when I retired. But then if I do the math now, if I retired, I mean, my mom would be like 90. So I didn't like really think about it, but it was always in the back of my mind, like, oh, I could do that. Like, I could see myself doing that. But I didn't actively seek it out until recently.
And you had a whole other career in the meantime. Let's talk about that.
So I was a career DOEer, Department of Education.
In the New York City.
In New York City. Listen, I loved it. I loved it very much. I loved teaching reading. I loved the kids a lot. But it took a lot out of me. It was a lot. It was like swimming upstream all the time. So I was a teacher there for years, and then I became an assistant principal, and then I became a principal when I was really young, I think. And so, COVID hit, and I had to reevaluate everything. Those years were really tough. I had one kid in 2017, and then I had Leah in September 2019. Went back to work January 2020, and then March 2020.
Ooh.
They called it off. They're like, go home. So I had a baby. Like, she was a baby at that time. So things were tough at home. Things were tough at work. So it started to be time to end that career.
We can talk about the babies too, but I wonder what from that experience, 13 years as an educator, you brought with you into what you're doing now with the bookstore.
Yeah, so I loved, like I said, I loved teaching reading. Many of my students came in well below grade level, like the literacy levels were really low. Also lots of English language learners, lots of students with disabilities. It was a puzzle. And I kind of enjoyed that challenge, teaching kids how to read. But one thing I always did was everybody got to choose what they read all the time, no matter what. I did not assign books to kids.
Reflecting back on your experience of never doing the assignment.
Never reading it anyway. But I felt very passionately about that. And like, I remember I used to hire English teachers and I was like, well, what if I told you you couldn't teach your favorite novel? Like, that might not be that kid's favorite. They might never touch it. Like, I would rather the kid read, like, just read. So that was, I mean, as you can imagine, that was an uphill battle too. People were like, you're a little bit crazy.
How did the kids receive it?
They read. They learned how to read. I think some of them maybe enjoyed it. All of our literacy rates, our grad rates, everything just like skyrocketed. And there were like, it was like, there were many things that went into that. But I think the literacy piece was the hugest part of what I did. Was teaching them how to read, be literate, write. They also got to write whatever they wanted all the time. And like, their stuff was good. You know, exposure to books and learning what you like as a reader is a huge part of what I do now that I used to do as an educator.
I love that. I feel like I was one of those kids that like never enjoyed the assignment, but I wasn't quite as bold as you to just not do the assignment. I was too much of a rule follower.
Well, you were Catholic school too, right?
It was private school.
Private school,
I feel like if I had a friend like you at the time, I might have been emboldened.
It would have been bad. I don't think I was a good influence.
Can you tell me about building a literate community? That's something that we like started talking about the other day.
Yeah. So like literacy is how you understand the world around you, how you operate within it. So I just saw Brandon Taylor in conversation with Percival Everett the other night, and I think it was Percival Everett who said that reading is one of the most subversive acts you can do. And then writing is the next subversive act. And you can't disagree with something if you don't understand it. And if you can't communicate that you disagree, then you're kind of silenced. So that's the way I see literacy as a whole. It's not just like the words on the page, the letter sound, like phonics and phonemics has a lot to do with it, but it's a lot of how the world is structured and understanding that.
And with the kids that you worked with, I mean, you were already talking about like the choice of what you're reading and the empowerment in that choice, and then therefore what you're writing. The kids that you were working with in your time as an educator and the community that you're working with now, like do you see any parallels in what you're doing to empower these communities?
I mean, they're very different kids. Another reason why I wanted to leave was I had these two kids at home, and my energy, all of my energy, everything I had was going into my school in the city, and I kind of wanted to start to filter that here more locally to impact my own kids' community a little bit more. But I think there's still a lot of kids here in, the Montclair area that don't feel seen, or maybe don't have a place, or like haven't found their thing yet, or their people. And books can play a role, I think, in their lives that can be really positive. So I don't think you have to be, struggling with poverty or racism to feel that way. What's nice is there's plenty out there now. Like when my mom started that catalog, what did you read when you were a kid? We were just talking about this now, and little brown girls being obsessed with blonde hair. Like, do you ever remember a character in your books with braids?
No, definitely not.
Like,
no.
an afro, dark skin.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Like that, it just
I literally drew a blank. I was like, "What is she asking me?"
Yeah, you're like, I don't know. It doesn't. I mean, that's why like our generation thinks it's so revolutionary that the Little Mermaid became black. Like everything we consumed was white.
Yeah,
always.
Yeah.
So there's so much more out there now that I think makes the work a little bit easier.
Right. Let's go with raising your black girls in the bookstore that you grew up in.
Yeah.
And now this like full circle moment of raising your kids in that store.
Well, you'll see. You're however many months with child. It ends up feeling like years at the end. Being a mother impacts every aspect of your life. It it changes your brain chemistry apparently. So that it's like nice to be so hyper local for my own kids and kind of just like have a hand in what's going on. But you know, they do the regular kid thing where they mimic what I do. And so like they'll hold book fairs at home and they'll like put like all the little books out in the living room.
No. Oh my God.
And Olame will be like, Leah, you have to choose from there because you're a 5th grader and that's the 5th grade table. And so you can choose your book there. And they'll like pretend to scan out books. And so it's really cute. But I think Leah thinks I told her one day I had to go to work and she's like, yeah, you got to go read with that monkey.
What?
And I was like, what are you talking about? And then we had a Curious George costume once. And I did story time next to like a big costumed monkey. So I think she thinks that's what I do. Is just like read with characters, big characters. Like all the fun, like Clifford and stuff, which is part of what I do. But it's nice to, like, I'm in their schools all the time. I do book fairs with their schools, so I have a hand in what their friends are seeing, you know, what they're reading. And so it's nice, but it's like, you know, it's a lot of work. It's still a full-time job. So there's a lot of balancing, juggling, running around.
So they don't get jealous.
Yeah.
And protest.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, managing their feelings about, I mean, like, I've always worked full time. I took, I don't know what, like 12 weeks after each kid. So I don't think they remember me ever being home. And I used to leave before they woke up. Like, I would be on my way into the city at 6 a.m. So this is better now that I have them in the mornings. If I work late or if I work a Saturday, I still get to see them, which I never did. Like, if I worked late before, it would be like 2 days, basically, where I didn't see them. Wow. So it's still a full-time job, but being closer to home, I think, has been really, really good for my relationship with them.
I think it's probably, too, like, such a special thing for them to be able to see and experience it with you, you know, coming to the book readings and the events and seeing you in their schools, doing the book fairs, to just, like, see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's a memory that's going to stick with them forever.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, I used to be a little bit annoyed by, you know, the amount that my mom had to put in to working at the store, but I don't know. I agree. If you ask my 16-year-old self, do you want to be your mom when you grow up? I'd be like, no.
I don't think any of us.
Never.
I think all of us would
Never.
say no. That's a hard age to ask that question, by the way. 16.
Yeah, okay, yes. But also maybe like in my 20s. Like, I don't think I ever thought to emulate my mother in that way. And then like here I am. Living in the same town that she moved to, running her store. Even people say we sound the same. Like, I started working at the store. I had never heard that until like a few years ago. And then, I mean, now it's like my brother's favorite joke is like me turning into mom. Because he knows it gets my goat. But, you know, like, she's not a bad mom to be like.
Certainly not.
Yeah.
We're all Team Margot over here.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I feel very lucky and fortunate, and I hope my kids feel that way and see me working in a way that I find meaningful, that the community hopefully finds meaningful, and that one day they can do that somewhere, somehow.
Yeah. I mean, she built this legacy, really, for you to be able to step into and then take it in whatever direction you want to take it from here.
Yeah.
Can you talk about stepping into the legacy that she built and expanding it with opening the kids' room?
I was like, I'm retiring from the DOE. This is going to be a year of no ambition. I'm just going to like, you know, like not coast, but just like, I'm just going to observe.
Recover.
I'm going to figure things out. Yeah, like not try and be extra, do extra.
It didn't last.
And then I went into the store. But the number one conflict and the thing that kept coming up with staff was space. Like, it was like we were on top of each other. The store, like, turned over more books per square foot than any store in the nation.
Not
like,
a bad problem.
Yeah. Like, it was like we had, like, this bustling business. It felt like a stuffed sausage in that store. And there was more and more that people needed to do digitally. It's so crazy. I used to scan out book fair stuff and have, like, 20 boxes of books just sitting in the middle of the store waiting for a school to pick them up.
Wow.
So one of the employees pushed me when this store, like the little realtor sign came up. And I was like, oh, fine. time. Let's go look. And it made sense. I mean, I think this is the perfect place to have a store that's dedicated to children. You know, there's lots of young families. We did not have space to do any children's programming. Like, we were squeezed back there. Like, you have one family of 4 with a stroller. Nobody else could fit in that back room. Like, that's it. Especially in the winter with jackets, then that's it. So forget about story time, forget about having children's authors in. Like, I mean, it was like we just couldn't, everything we wanted to do, we kind of stopped and we're like, oh, but our space, but we don't have room. So then the space opened up and I just kind of crunched the numbers. But I went to a conference that year in February, and there was a business professor who did a panel on financial modeling and was like, here's how you figure out if your business can afford to do a project. And it kind of was like this oddly perfect time that I was like, oh yeah, I want to see, like, can we afford to have 2 stores? So it was nice that I had like some framework to figure out if we could like do it, even, you know.
Yeah.
I don't do anything just by the seat of my pants, so I had to calculate first. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of work to get it open, to move all those books over there. We had to hire a bunch of people. Like, we didn't have enough staff to really split. And there's been some attrition in the turnover of the store. So, like, we hired a ton of people that spring. It was a lot.
I mean, this is like took a lot of vision, though. Planning, and like, you're kind of maybe underselling it as like a logistical answer, or an answer to a logistical problem. But like, this took vision about like what the community needs and how you were gonna address it, and like knowing that you actually like had a role in providing a service, not just a physical space, but like a community space. To this town.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of it, the kids' room, as like, you know, a love letter to childhood in Montclair. It's like the little backyard. We've got story times now. Like, we just set up story time before I came over here. There's like some 30 people that come every week. Wow. Little babies, little toddlers. Your little one will be there. You know, we get to have authors come in all the time. Like, and I think like the one thing that I would like to focus on is kind of recreating little nooks. So like our back room, our original kids' room was just carpeted. And so kids would just grab a book and just sit. Like, you just plop down on the floor and you could see kids reading on the floor at any given time. And so this space is wide open, which has its benefits. But I think some kids need a little nook.
I love a reading nook.
Like, yeah. So we're trying to like...
I'm not a kid, but I just am like...
Well, we all need a little reading nook. We all need one.
I went in there the other day because I needed to buy a book for our baby.
What'd you get?
I got Juliana's a Mermaid, which is the book that we gift to all of our friends having kids, but we haven't yet.
You don't have it?
For ourselves.
Oh my gosh.
So I went in and bought it yesterday.
I would have given you that.
No, it's okay, because I wanted to like go and be in the space. I'm in this very like emotional, like preparing for what's to come. Mm-hmm. And I just like sat there in one of the kids' chairs. And I was like,
how did you even get down there?
With much difficulty.
Yeah.
No, but I had a moment. Obviously, I'm super hormonal and the emotions were flowing, but I was just like, I'm going to like raise my kid in this bookstore.
I hope so.
And Auntie Maddie's going to come and it's,
I hope so. I mean, why did you, other than the fact that we recruited heavily, why did you guys come to Montclair from?
That campaign was years long. It was a dedicated, steady recruitment campaign. It was. I mean, we took your plugs for this place to grow up and raise kids to heart. But I think, like, now that we're here, it's been about a year now, and, like, really settled in and about to start our own family, I can really see what you guys were going on and on about as, like, Montclair natives coming back to raise your families here. Just the sense of community, and I think it's, you know, there's a lot of different factors that play into that make it feel like really like community while still having the things that we enjoyed about living in New York and San Francisco, like bigger cities that we lived in. But I feel like spaces where there's like this communal kind of raising. Like part of that is our friendships and like having friends in town that live here that you know have young kids as well that we're nowhere gonna like raise our families side by side, but also having the spaces that like you and your mom created and are keeping alive in spite of all of the big box stores and the Amazons and the things that try to like strip us of these community spaces. Independent booksellers, you know?
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, imagine if you had to go on a highway to get everything. You need it. Like, you know what?
Bummer.
That is a nightmare for a young parent to like have to like go to a strip mall on a highway to like get one little thing. I think we forget in this day and age how essential like a hyper local community of small businesses actually is.
I mean, you're talking about like the convenience factor of like, I don't want to get on a highway and go to a strip mall, but like I also just want to be like with the people that I know in town, sitting down for story time.
Yep, exactly.
You know, and then like maybe we go get a coffee after.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, when you have a young baby, those spaces are so important. I mean, I used to walk Olame around town everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it was the best having a summer baby. We would just go to the farmer's market. I'd walk her up to the bookstore all the time and just kind of, like, throw her at my mom and then walk away for a few minutes. I'd be like, you're in a meeting? Would you like to hold your grandchild? I gotta go. I'm gonna go take a walk by myself. But, yeah, seeing people you know. I mean, we would live in such an isolated world if we didn't have those spaces.
Yeah.
And Montclair is nice because everybody can walk to... Like, every little neighborhood has its spots.
Yeah. No, it's really great. I'm glad you guys were right. Good. Can you talk about, because you're just throwing your kid at your mom.
Yeah.
3 generations of women in this bookstore. That, like, brings me to tears almost. And I think I saw, like, a photo of your kids, you and your mom.
Yeah.
In the bookstore, because that's not something that in this time is common.
No, it's not. I think it's really special for my girls. They get to come into the store and see their grandma or their mom. They are getting a little bit restless. They call her Mo, and they're always like, Mo, when are you going to retire? I thought you were going to retire. Like, why are you still in the bookstore? And then they give her a whole bunch of guilt.
Parenting you.
And I think it's just they enjoy spending so much time with her. And I think it's like this competition for time that children have. They're always trying to get somebody's time. So she picks them up from school a few times a week. And it's nice. Like, they get to hang. I hope we can last a long, 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 long time. Like, knock on wood. And that either my children or my niece or somebody in the next generation of our family is interested in continuing the business so that one day I can retire. But it's nice that it's, like, a family business.
And a woman-owned business.
Yeah.
Like, cannot sleep on that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any words of wisdom or advice or lessons learned so far in being a small business owner that you can impart? I'm an independent filmmaker.
I know,
it's a little different, but both like kind of in our own independent bags.
Yeah, like working for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked for such a big oppressive system for so long. This is very different.
One might say the same about corporate media where I used to work before I became
so
an independent filmmaker.
That's right. Yeah, like, I don't know. I think it's been a huge adjustment. I think the biggest thing I'm learning is to slow down. Like, I think I'm still trying to go 1,000,000 miles a minute, and I don't need to. Like, I can set the pace, which is new to me.
Right.
There's, like, external things that always dictate what can happen, but that part is very weird to me. And everything was always marked by the school year for me, so it was like, you gotta do this, and that by June, and then it was like a whole chunk of my kids would, like, leave. They would just, like, graduate and go. But that's not really the case now, so I have to slow down. This year, I'm gonna have no ambition. This is the year we're not gonna do anything extra. I'm just going to read some books, sell some books, talk to customers. That's it. I'm going to slow down.
I don't believe you, but
Famous
I'm going to let you believe yourself for a minute.
Words, yeah. I'm gonna manifest that. I'm putting that out there.
Meanwhile, let's go to book banning.
These people.
I mean, yeah, the importance of the service that you provide and what you can also bring to schools and the role that you play amidst this context of folks trying to limit what kids are exposed to, what young people are exposed to, what teachers can teach. As a former educator, I'm sure that does not sit well at all.
No, rubs me the wrong way. It's really, I think at this point, book selling has become a social justice issue, and librarians too. I cannot emphasize how important public spaces for reading are, and so libraries are like essential to a democracy. But it's a little bit scary. It's right here. They tried this nonsense in Glen Ridge, right,
right next door.
And it's scary to think about kids who are coming into their own. I feel very deeply for like LGBTQ kids who are really on the front line of like major attacks on their bodies and their mental health. And so I think we can only create safe spaces for kids where they can see themselves, they can see a world where they are happy and healthy, and books can do that. But it's amazing. It's like even the major national book fair provider had a little button that was like, you can choose to opt out of diversity for your book fairs, and we'll just keep all that stuff aside.
Opt out of diversity, like what?
You can just opt out of it. You can just say nope, which is what, yeah. But like that's what corporate America is. Like diversity is this little separate thing.
Right.
And so luckily people in Montclair were like upset by that. Luckily people noticed, and there's been good response. I don't think anybody needs to use that provider in our immediate area because we can do that.
I mean, that's not anything to sleep on. Like the fact that you can provide an alternative book fair locally to meet the needs, to not have these types of restrictions, and that's huge.
Yeah, like I don't want my child to walk through a book fair and not see a single brown face on a book, not see anything that wasn't like made for TV content, essentially.
We had one of these book fairs when I was a kid, and now I'm like back to the question that you asked me, like what did you read as a kid? And now, like as I'm picturing myself walking through,
did you get the diaries? That's what you got, right?
Yeah, the diary, but also like I'm actually only picturing like picture books with animals on them.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like,
yep.
Like the ones that,
yeah.
Maybe it's because none of the like human characters reflected me and my family. And so I was drawn to these like animal
you're like,
characters.
there's a bear. Yeah.
There's a goldfish.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, this feels more normal to me.
Oh, God.
I think that makes me really sad to think about. So I'm glad we don't have to deal with that here. It was really nice to go to the conference again this year. There were like many more Black booksellers and Black-owned bookstores that were represented at the conference. And so I touched base with somebody who was curious about book fairs. And, I think it's just, you gotta just help each other any way that you can. And hopefully these things can happen other places too.
Yeah.
It's scary.
What is your, what's your projection, and also what is your hope for the future of independent, locally owned booksellers?
I hope we all do a little bit more than survive. I hope we thrive.
Yeah.
I think there's so many wonderful things that a local bookstore can offer, and so I hope we only grow. I think just nationally the trend has been returning to local bookstores. Even Barnes & Noble is letting their managers like rename their bookstores and like kind of operate them as more independent stores because that is a more successful business model, I suppose. I hope that we thrive and kind of take over.
Take back over.
Yeah, take back over whatever big box stores and online retailers have like taken from communities. The more that I learn about what those big guys do, the more I realize that they have to go. There's not room for all of us. There's some big box stores that refuse to display debut authors, so they will only sell or display authors that have already sold books, right? Which means that essentially you're just choosing, the books are from an algorithm. Like you're not going to read anything new, you're not going to read anything interesting, you're going to see the same stuff everywhere.
Yeah, what they already know sells.
Yep. Which means that we're going to be fed the same, it's just going to be regurgitated content, which is almost as problematic as actually actively censoring books.
Right. And only from a limited number of voices.
Right. And then, who's making those decisions about which of those authors get to be there? So I think that booksellers are uniquely positioned to respond to their community's needs and kind of do that organically. I hope we squeeze out the big guy, to be honest.
I hope so too. I think too the pandemic really hopefully made people appreciate that even more. The isolation and just the forced separation, and then coming out of that and trying to stitch back okay, what does make a community a community?
Yeah.
This is one of those vital services and spaces.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to spend your money where you would like to spend your time.
Right, yes.
And people are not going to Storytime on Amazon.com. Like, they're not. Like, they're not, seeing a local debut author, launch their book at an event at Barnes & Noble. We're doing that.
Yeah.
I think we're in a really very literary-focused community, and so I think we're probably a lot safer than other bookstores, and so we can, we have these robust programs, but I hope that for everybody, like all of the independent bookstores out there.
Yeah. So, like, no cap, I feel like you read a book a day.
No.
And
Once
I know,
a week.
like...
Once a week. Ish.
Fine, sure. But, like, you're reading for work now.
Yes.
And, like, this is a part of the job as opposed to, like, before it was for leisure, pleasure, education.
Yeah.
So what are you reading now that still gives you that sense of, like, okay, this is for me, not just for work?
So I like to read, I don't read nonfiction. I'm, like, just straight up not a nonfiction reader. And
We're, like, the exact opposite.
I'm not ashamed of it. Yeah, every book. And that's why I'll never give you a book. I'll just give them to your husband because I'm not going to. And I have another friend who's a reader, and she only reads nonfiction, like just like heavy stuff. I think the last nonfiction book I read was Clint Smith, How the Word Is Passed, and he's a poet, so I think that's why I liked it. I was like, oh,
it counts.
So I will read. Like, I like a lot of literary fiction. I like stuff when it's well written. Like, I love a trained author, but I also love a little bit of smut, like a little spicy romance, or like a whodunit mystery to like be like a palate cleanser. Like, those are books that I read in like a day. Those books I read in a day.
Those are the one book a day.
But it's like if I read something like super heavy or super literary, then I need something before I can dip into another literary book. So that's when I go to
the palate cleansers.
The palate cleansers, which is like, what's her name? Anna Huang has those. Or like an Emily Henry kind of, like I could do like a rom-com or like a whodunit. It's like somebody is murdered. I got to figure this out. And then I just keep reading. But I do, I still actually very much enjoy reading. And my kids are finally getting to an age where they leave me alone a little bit. So I get some time to read. Yeah. They are, yeah. And we read a lot of Mercy Watson, Kate DiCamillo. That's like our favorite chapter books these days. She's a naughty little pig who lives with a family. And man, does she get into quite a bit of trouble, that Mercy. And what else do we read? One on. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we will. We've got them all. That, and then the Who Would Win. That's what I was talking to you about the other night. It's like the coyote versus the dingo. Or the lion versus the tiger. And then it's like all these facts about the animals, and then it ends in an epic battle. Somebody dies.
I love it.
Leah loves those.
I bet she does. That tracks.
So we read those at night.
What has motherhood taught you that you've brought into your work now as a small business owner, as someone who plays this role in the community? And vice versa.
Motherhood taught me everything I know about life and untaught me everything I thought I knew about anything. I don't know. I mean, I was in a leadership position in my school for some years, and I do think that being a mother has changed the way that I lead. I think I've gained a lot more, empathy and understanding about people and where they're coming from and what might have happened that morning before they got to work. Because I like to say I've lived a whole life before 9 a.m. Like, sure, that's true. Whole life. So I think it helps, everybody has their stuff.
Was your mom, like, the same age when she started the bookstore as you are now?
Oh, that's such a good question. That's why, I don't know. I want to do the math.
She was in her mid to late 30s starting the bookstore.
I think so. Yes, and I am in my late 30s.
Are we calling it mid to late 30s? Taking it.
I don't know if it's mid anymore. I think it's late. We're at the end.
I love that full circle moment.
Yeah, I think she was probably around the same age.
Any final thoughts?
No. Just thank you so much for coming and doing this with me.
This was fun.
This was really fun.
Thank you, Maddie and Contessa, for sharing your stories with us. We are so happy to see Watchung Booksellers grow and welcome a new generation of readers. Contessa, congratulations on your new baby Goldie.
Before we go, don't forget to register for these great author events coming up. Tonight, Tuesday, June 18th, Ananda Lima will be talking with Dion Ford about her book of stories, Craft, Stories I Wrote for the Devil. And tomorrow, Wednesday, June 19th, Henry Neff celebrates the launch of Witchstone, which will also be live streaming on our YouTube channel.
And on Thursday, June 27th, Julia Phillips is back with her second novel, Bear. And on Tuesday, July 9th, we've got Daniel Silva at Temple Nair to Mead for the release of his latest Gabriel Allon thriller, A Death in Cornwall. He's only doing a handful of events on the East Coast, so be sure to get tickets today.
You can find out more about all of our upcoming events in our newsletter, show notes, and at watchungbooksellers.com.
Recording and editing at Silverstream Studio in Montclair, New Jersey. Special thanks to Timmy Kelleney, Bree Testa, and Derek Mathias. Original music is composed and performed by Violet Mujica. Art and design by Evelyn Moulton, and research and show notes by Carolyn Shurtleff. Thanks to all the staff at Watchung Booksellers and the Kids Room for their hard work and love of books.
And thank you for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, please like, follow, and share it. You can follow us on social media at Watchung Booksellers. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to wbpodcast@watchungbooksellers.com.
We'll see you next week. Until then, for the love of books, keep reading.